Hello everyone and welcome to another review. Today we will be covering the Knights of Ren transport ship with 595 pieces. This is set 75284 and it does retail for a huge chunk of $70, which is a lot considering there are only 3 minifigures. But there is definitely some value in this set, specifically the 2 Knights of Ren which you get in this set. And you also do get Rey, which is definitely seen in a lot of sets, but still, if you don't have Rey, you might as well get some benefit out of the set, considering you do get the last 2 Knights of Ren, and then you also get Rey on the side, which a little bit disappointing, but 3 minifigures is better than 2, so that's pretty nice. You do get a little bit of a desert area, probably after the chase in the last movie, but let's move on to the back, which does have a nice showcase of all the features, like how there's a few areas for you to fit all your minifigures. You do have some easy access to the the spring-loaded shooters as well, and also that there's a few sites of the landing gears, 2 at the front and then 1 in the back, which are a little bit hard to see, but you can still kind of see some of the features and also generally some more detailing about the ship, but we'll get into more of that when we physically look at the set. Also, you can play this in the Skywalker Saga, which I have yet to pick up. However, if you do have it, you can definitely see it in the game. So on to the minifigs. Let's start off with Rey, who isn't really particularly any different than the last few Reys that have been acquired. They're still basically the same. There's a little bit more printing on the legs than you might see in some other minifigures, seeing as how you do have a separation between the shoes and the kind of pants or robe by having a bit of slit of the skin tone there. You also do get some of the robe kind of going down through there, so you can kind of see the robe detailing. And then moving up, you do have a double belt, followed up by a crisscross pattern of the robe, leaving into like a slit where you can see the neck going up into the face. You also do just have regular arms, as the robe does not provide any kind of arm protection, so you don't have anything against the sun there, but you do get a classic blue lightsaber with a chrome hilt. You then get a little bit of an angrier expression here, nothing too angry, but just kind of a little bit more on the negative side. And then you get the hair, which does have the expected braiding, just kind of there. But taking that away, you can see the hood there and the continuation of the kind of belt there, and also just the kind of more bland expression where it's not as angry as before. Now, you do get 2 exclusive minifigures, which is great in a set like this. Now, this Knight of Ren here has a little bit of battle plating armor here. Over on their legs, they have a little bit of like side robes, so they're kind of split apart with some silver going up and following that pattern with a little bit more of like mechanical bits throughout the center and kind of a more clean exterior with look. Then the helmet has a breathing apparatus with a little bit of slits for eyes there, which look kind of weird. However, you do get this interesting looking side panels which kind of stick out slightly, and since all of the Knights of Ren have a slightly different helmet design, this is definitely one of the more interesting ones. However, the eyes kind of ruin it for me. The rest of it, though, looks very good. You do have the gunmetal gray, which kind of fits in with this aesthetic of these knights. However, they're futuristic, so their armor is kind of, in a way, looks like armor, but it also has a bit of futuristic elements in there, which is very nice. And he also has this very interesting weapon right here, which is quite big and solid and is very heavily used with the Dark Troopers. So very interesting to see there. Turning the character over, you don't really have too much. However, you do have more of that line pattern, at least for the majority of it, and then towards the top you have a bit more of a rugged looking aspect there, which is pretty interesting. A little bit of diversity in the character, which is pretty nice to see. And finally, our last minifigure, which is also exclusive and a Knight of Ren. This again follows that same aesthetic. However, you do get more of a studded look on the exterior instead of like a more lined approach, and it's also a bit more of a chrome color. However, they do have more utility and kind of belt-like appearance in the center, with more of like a breathing apparatus towards like the top of the head, or maybe some bombs. Who really knows with these guys? Because in one way, you can kind of see the detail. However, I think it's better to kind of have it up close and look at it, because from the angle that I'm kind of trying to describe it as, it is a little bit more difficult to kind of fully tell because everything kind of blends together, which is a bit on me for not making this review as crazy or as accurate as it could be. However, it's always better to just kind of hold the minifigure in your hand and observe everything rather than have someone describe it to you, at least from my experience. Then also the helmet is very interesting because it looks kind of like a hockey mask up at the front with some snow goggles, and then just kind of transitions into more of like a World War II style helmet out at the back, which is definitely unique. I haven't seen that done for any of them, and I think it does make for an interesting combo nonetheless. I will highlight the gun or the armaments that they have because it is definitely of an interesting style because we don't normally see these brick-built blasters. However, I think this one turned out pretty well for them. You know, you've got all the colors that you'd expect for their weapons, and it also feels way more interesting than the weapon that the other Knights of Ren had. So I think it's pretty nice overall. The back does have a very similar design as the other Knights of Ren had. However, the pattern is the same as the one that you saw on the side, so really these Knights of Ren are very similar on the back aspect. However, they just have a slightly different variation. However, let's move on to the ship, which is probably going to be very exciting for many people. This ship is very interesting, to put lightly. It does have some guns up at the front, one on this side, with none really on this side, which is pretty interesting how on like the normal looking placements where you'd expect there to be like some kind of weapons. However, at the front it does have a smaller one and then also a twin turret there. And then it also does have slots for spring-loaded shooters, which can be activated by looking underneath. You can see this little push pin there, which would extend out to there, and then you just press it down to kind of fire it. However, normally when I'm displaying these things, I don't put those there. You can see the slight little spot for this angled grill. The landing features. The back one does spin a lot, so you might have a little bit of trouble getting that one to angle itself correctly. So you might need to fix that because it doesn't always land it properly, which is a little bit unfortunate. However, it's not that difficult of a fix. If we start looking at the various placements, you can store a minifigure in there. It is best to probably take the gun away and then kind of set them down so that they actually fit. But you can store them away, you can kind of lock them in there, and they'll be fine. Or you can kind of use some of these slots, which you can use just have them standing, and more like a tank style, where you'd have them sitting up top looking, and then kind of shooting either with the cannon that's in front of them, or with their own blaster. So that's kind of an interesting thing right there. You do have two of those slots, because you have one in the back and a little bit one forward. The only weird thing is that if you're using this gun and then someone is using that, they might end up shooting your blaster, so very interesting little there, a little bit of bad design there. But overall, this is an interesting transport in the way that it's designed. I don't really know what this dish is for, but it definitely feels like some kind of communication device. And it is nicely angled, at least from the front sides here. The engines are also pretty nice, connected by these tubes. They are pretty stable, the build is pretty sound, and it does have this orange for it, and then also just some grill pieces. It is nicely angled. I will say that's probably the benefit of the set, that it does have some good angling. Space-wise, it doesn't have much interior, unlike the Imperial Shuttle, which does have the same cost, but it does have more interior space than this. However, this is definitely one of those things that's like, you probably will just pick it up for the Knights of Ren rather than the build itself. Although the build does serve its purpose, it's not terrible, so at least you've got that going. It's not like, if you don't really care about the Knights of Ren, I wouldn't really stress anybody to buy this, because this is one of those things where I can definitely see the market for it, especially if you want the Knights of Ren. However, you don't really need it. It's one of those sets where it's like, okay, if you've purchased yourself the Kylo Ren shuttle and the Sith TIE Fighter, and you also have these X-Wing, then you might as well pick this up just to complete your Knights of Ren collection. But if you're like, oh yeah, I've just got the Kylo Ren, then you know what, maybe you don't want it because you don't plan on buying any of the other fighters. So if it's like, if you're almost there and this is the last set to complete your Knights of Ren, pick it up. Or if you find this like an interesting build, then you might want to pick it up. Otherwise, if you answered no to any of those, I would just say, forget about it. You know, save your money to get something that's definitely going to pique your interest more. We've definitely got some more interesting sets in the lineup currently. And I don't even know if this one's still available. It might be. If it's not, then this is pretty pointless thing. But I would say if you don't need it, don't buy it. Basically, that's the basis that I'm going off. But I hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Bye.